The worst sound I've ever heard isn't a whale song or a whole groaning at depth. It's a 12-year-old boy trying not to breathe while the wet-lock door cycles. It comes out like a squeak trapped behind his teeth, like he's choking on his own fear, like his lungs don't know if they're allowed to work yet. And the whole time there's water everywhere, beating on the pipes, running down the bulkhead seams, dripping off the handrails, like the place is sweating him out. I'm sitting in a chair that shouldn't exist at 200 meters down. Some idiot carpenter on the surface made it out of thin pine and sealed it with varnish like that means anything. The legs are swollen and soft. Every time I shift my weight, the wood complains, slow and wet, like it remembers being a tree and it hates me for making it drown. My eyes are locked on the boy, and for a flicker, just a stupid human flicker, I think maybe what we're doing is wrong. Maybe we're the monsters. Maybe we always were. Then Zachary's hand clamps down on my shoulder, hard, a steady pressure through my coveralls, and the doubt snaps back into its box like a knife into a sheath. He's strong in that quiet way men get when they've had the power for too long and never had to raise their voice to keep it. "Don't," he says, low enough that only I can hear. His breath smells like coffee and antiseptic and the chew he always packs. Not now. Who the hell am I to deny the will of God, right? That's what he calls it. God. Providence. The deep's blessing. Whatever helps everyone sleep inside a steel can filled with salt water and lies. I take a breath. The air tastes like metal and dried brine and whatever the scrubbers are failing to catch this week. My tongue feels coated like I've been licking pennies. And then, before the wet lock even finishes cycling, I smell it. She always comes with it. Citrus, sharp and bright, like someone cracked open a lemon right into your face, but there's something underneath. Earthy green, almost herbal. Thai, maybe. Something that doesn't belong in recycled air. Something you should only smell if you're standing over a crushed plant on land after rain. The boy hears it too, or senses it because his shoulders go up and he freezes like a rabbit. Disappointing. Honestly, we spent the last week feeding him the best fruit we could grow under LEDs. Real fruit, not paste, not ration bars. We cut his working shift down to 9 hours. 9. We let him read for 30 minutes a day, and not just the approved manuals. I even slipped him a dog-eared paperback from before the station went dark on comms, back when I still thought books could save people. And what for? For him to stand there now, shaking, eyes wet, snot shining on his upper lip like a damn toddler. This isn't how he was raised. I raised him. Me and the other women. The tenders. The maids. If you want to be old-fashioned about it, like Zachary does when he's preaching. We raised him to face this moment with courage and dignity, with respect for tradition, the way God intends. Not with tears tracking down his cheeks in the cold air, mouth open because he can't figure out how to keep breathing without making noise. He takes one slow step, then another, labored, like his boots are full of water even though the deck is dry. Dryish anyway. Nothing is ever fully dry down here. The station has a constant dampness to it, like the ocean owns the place and just lets us pretend. Behind us, the other maids begin to chant. It starts as a whisper, a hum under the throat, the kind you do when you're trying to keep panic from crawling up your spine. They sit in their own chairs, shoulder to shoulder in the narrow chapel module, hands in their laps, eyes forward. Their hair is tied back in the same tight knots. Their faces are hollow in the low light. The hum isn't pretty. It isn't meant to be. It's meant to match a frequency. Along the aisle, the men stand in formation, silent, completely nude. No coveralls, no boots, no mas. Their skin has that pale, underwater look even though they haven't seen open water in years. Salt sallow, almost translucent in places, veins like blue ropes. And where their genitalia should be, there's nothing. Smooth skin, scarred and oddly healed. In some, it's bright red and swollen, the tissue pulsing like it's still trying to remember what it was. The sight distracts a few of the maids, makes their humming wobble. One of them fumbles the pitch, and Zachary's head snaps toward her like a dog hearing a whistle. She corrects immediately. Nobody wants his attention. The boy sobs, soft and ugly, when he realizes he's only got a couple more steps before the altar. Before her. He turns his head, just enough, and locks eyes with me. "Mama," he mouths. It hits me like a fist every time. Not because I'm his mother. I'm not allowed to be that. Not officially. Officially, I'm a tender, a caretaker, a resource manager, a womb with hands. But kids don't give a damn about official. Kids pick a person and call it home. And I hate that he picked me because I know where we were always taking him. I flip my hand up, palm forward, sharp little motion that means get on with it. Keep moving. Don't embarrass me. Don't embarrass yourself. Don't make Zachary look at me like I'm weak. He flinches like I slapped him. One final muted, guttural sob crawls out of his mouth as he steps up to the altar. The altar is a metal grate over the moonpool hatch, a round plate in the deck with a ring of bolted clamps, and a big yellow warning stencil that says wet access. Authorized personnel only. Someone painted over the warning with a cross and a circle and a bunch of symbols Zachary claims came to him in prayer. The paint is always damp, always glossy, like it refuses to dry. Under that hatch is the only honest part of this station, the ocean. Black water pressed against steel. Pressure that would crush you into paste if the seals failed. A depth that doesn't care about your beliefs. As a maid, Tinder, I'm not allowed to know who she is, where she is from, or really anything other than she takes one offering from each litter we produce. That's the word they use. Litter. Like we're dogs. Like we're rats in a bilge. Normally, it's supposed to be a strong, tall, preferably uncut male. Zachary says that like he's picking a prime cut of meat. But the only hard prerequisite, the only rule that never changes, is that they're male and they're 12 years old to the day. 12 to the day. We keep the records like accountants. We mark the calendars on the bulkhead. We count the hours. Because the ocean counts too, much to God's disappointment. I'm the only one who's been able to successfully and continuously bear males. That's why Zachary keeps his hand on my shoulder like I'm his prized equipment. Each season I've been in his care, I've produced one. And each season I've watched another boy walk to the hatch and not come back. My success rate keeps Zachary wrapped around my finger, at least in the shallow ways. I don't worry about food or toiletries or the rare luxuries that show up in the supply drops when the surface still remembers we exist. I get extra battery time on the tablet. I get paper books. I only have to tend the hydroponic crops once every fortnight because they want my body rested. I am truly blessed, Zachary says. Blessed by my womb. I move my hand to my stomach as I think it, and pain snaps through me so sharp my fingers recoil like I touched a live wire. Tender, hot under the skin. I bite the inside of my cheek hard enough to taste blood, and I make my face smooth again. I hope Zachary didn't notice. He notices everything. The humming rises as the wet-locked door at the far side of the chapel clunks. The light above it flickers. The module's temperature drops a notch, condensation fogging the glass panels. The air turns thick like before a storm on the surface, like the station is holding its breath. The door will turn slow. The seal breaks with a sound like suction, and she comes in. She's too tall for the doorway, but she makes herself fit anyway. Not by ducking like a normal person, by folding. I don't know how else to say it. She contorts like cartilage doesn't apply to her. Like her bones are suggestions. Like her skin is a suit she can rearrange to get through a hole. Water spills in with her, not a flood, just a steady, lazy pour like she's carrying the ocean in her folds. It runs across the deck in thin streams, finds a low points, crawls toward the moonpool hatch like it belongs there. She smells like citrus and thyme, stronger now, making my eyes water. She reaches down and grabs the boy's hand. Her fingers aren't fingers, not really. Long, jointed things with too many bends. Tendrils that end in pale, rubbery pads like the underside of the squid arm, but wrong. Too dry looking, too matte, then suddenly wet when they touch skin. They wrap around his small hand and wrist with gentle certainty, like she's holding a delicate tool. The boy looks up at her with pure disgust. Not fear, not awe. Disgust. Like he can't believe she exists. I've never seen her face. I don't think anyone down here has. Not fully. She's too tall, and she keeps herself angled away, and the light in this module is low and greenish from the emergency strips, like we're always one failure away from drowning. But even if I could see her face, I don't think I could look at it. Her stomach is what pulls your eyes. It protrudes so far forward it should topple her. A swollen mass tight with skin in some places, rippling with the outline of ribs pressed from inside. In spots, the skin stretches thin over bone, so you can see white. In other spots, it's red and diseased, oozing pus and blood into the water that drips from her body. It strings down in threads that float for a second before gravity remembers itself and pulls them to the deck. The stomach is so huge, it amazes me her legs can carry it. Her legs are no wider than a pencil. Too long. Not tall like a person tall, but tall like a structure. Like an oil rig leg disappearing into fog. Sometimes it takes my eyes a full minute to track from her feet, if those are feet, up to her pelvis because my brain keeps expecting the legs to end and they don't. Her feet don't land on the deck right. They sort of stick, like suction. The boy's hand is in hers now, and she bends down, and I hear the wet stretch of her skin as she lowers herself. She brings whatever she has for a mouth close to his ear. She speaks into him. That's what it looks like. Like the words don't go through air, but through skin. All of her hands are on him. Not two hands. More. Limbs unfold from her sides, from beneath that swollen stomach, from places my mind refuses to map. Tendrils, arms, fingers, pads. They probe him, feel him, find his joints, his ribs, his throat. They grip his forearms and pull them outward. The maids cease the chant and shift into a hum. One solid note, because Zachary told us once, eyes bright, voice trembling, that the hum helps her feed. Like we're seasoning a meal. Zachary raises his free hand, palm up, conducting us like a choir director. His lips move with silent prayer. The boy's eyes roll, not from faith, from panic. He tries to pull back. He can't. Her grip is gentle and absolute. Then she wails. It starts high, a thin needle of sound that makes my teeth ache. It grows in volume and pressure, filling the module. The water on the deck vibrates. The metal chair under me shivers. The bulkheads tremble like someone is running a giant fingernail down the outside of the station. I join the hum because you either join or you get singled out, and being singled out down here is the closest thing to a death sentence we have. The whale climbs. The boy's ears start bleeding almost immediately. Dark red droplets run down his neck, mixed with the water on his collarbone. He sobs again, but it's swallowed by the sound. I knew he was weak. I hate myself for thinking it, but I do. I hate him for making this harder. I hate Zachary for making me hate a kid. The men along the aisle remain silent, eyes forward, bodies stiff. One of them trembles. Another's knees buckle, and he catches himself at the last second. Their smooth groins gleam under the light, scar tissue shining like wax. The whale reaches a point where it stops being sound and starts being something else, something that presses on the inside of your skull. My vision flickers. I taste copper. The station's lights dim and flare, like the power is being sucked away. The boy falls to his knees. He tries to cover his ears, but her arms hold his wrists out, stretching them wide, raising him slowly into the air like a puppet on invisible strings. A mock crucifixion. His boots leave the deck. His body hangs small and shaking. His mouth opens wide enough to dislocate his jaw, and no sound comes out because the whale has stolen the air. And then the life just leaves him. There's a moment where his eyes are still focused, still human, and then they aren't. The light goes out behind them like someone shut a door. His skin tightens. His cheeks sink. His fingers curl and stiffen. He shrivels like spoiled fruit. The maid's hum deepens instinctively, like we're lowering the pitch to match the way he's collapsing. It's sick. It's automatic. It's practiced. Her wail crests, a triumphant screech, and the boy's body becomes a husk. Arms still outstretched, head tilted to the side. If he weren't so small and pathetic, he'd make a good scarecrow for the hydroponic rows, hanging above the lettuce to keep the rats away. As her arms and tendrils retreat, the husk drops. It hits the deck with a wet slap, more water spilling from somewhere inside him. Not blood, not exactly. Thin fluid that smells faintly of that citrus thyme note, like cleaning solution gone rotten. She contorts again, folding that massive stomach through the side door like it's soft, like it's full of jelly, like it's full of something that shifts and pushes back. She disappears into the wetlock. The door seals. The module gets warmer. The lights steady. The humming stops, leaving a ringing silence that feels like pressure after you surface too fast. For a second, nobody moves. Then Zachary steps forward. He walks confidently up to the husk like he's going to pick up a fallen tool. He doesn't look at the boy's face. He doesn't look at the blood at the ears. He doesn't look at any of it like it matters. As he walks the aisle, he brushes his hand along the smooth groin regions of the men as he passes, casual, possessive, like he's inspecting equipment, like he enjoys reminding them what they gave up to stay alive. One particularly sickly-looking man twitches. It's barely a movement, just a flinch, maybe from the ringing in his head, maybe from shame. Zachary's hand snaps down, grabs him hard, and he squeezes right where nothing is. The man makes a sound like he's been punched. His eyes roll back. He collapses to the deck, nude body hitting wet metal, sliding slightly in the thin layer of water. Zachary doesn't even pause. He reaches the husk, hooks his hands under its arms, and lifts. The body weighs almost nothing now, like a dried fish skeleton. It bends wrong, joints too loose. Zachary holds it up to the crowd, like a priest showing a relic. The maids resume the chant immediately, like the sound is a switch we flip. Soft at first, then stronger. The men stand rigid. The air tastes like rust and salt. It will be another year of bountiful harvest, Zachary says, voice carrying in the small space. Another year of prophecy. Another year of safety beneath the wrath of the surface. His eyes slide to me when he says safety, like he's reminding me who gave it to me. I force a smile. My cheek muscles feel stiff, like I'm wearing a mask. I can feel the salt drying on my lips. I can feel the cold dampness creeping into my socks. And under that, deep in my abdomen, the growing pain pulses again, slow and heavy like a second heartbeat. Tender to the touch. Last night, in my bunk, I woke up thinking I'd pissed myself. I threw off the blanket and found a bright, viscous green liquid leaking through my shirt from just below my ribs. It clung to my skin like oil. It smelled faintly of citrus and thyme. I wiped it with my fingers and it stretched in strings. Then it moved. Not like a bug. Not like anything I want to name. Just a slow, deliberate shift under my skin, as if something inside me had rolled over and settled into a more comfortable position. I cleaned it before anyone saw. I scrubbed my hands until my knuckles cracked. I pressed a towel against my stomach and sat there in the dark listening to the station's constant low groan and the distant, distorted ping of the sonar from the listening post module. Ping, 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 like a heartbeat out in the black. This morning, when I went to check the hydroponics, the water in the nutrient tanks was perfectly still. But my reflection in it blinked half a second late. I went straight from the chapel module to the wash station, and I still couldn't get the smell off my hands. Not because of the blood. The blood was nothing. Blood rinses. Blood is honest. This wasn't that. This was that citrus thyme stink clinging to my fingertips like it had soaked into the lines of my skin, like it was part of me now. I ran hot water until the heater started coughing and the pipes rattled. I scrubbed with the harsh yellow soap we reserve for the wet deck. I scraped under my nails with a sterilized pick like I was back in training, prepping for a medical procedure. The smell stayed. I stared at my reflection in the little mirror bolted above the sink, and I caught myself doing it, waiting for my eyes to blink like I didn't trust my own face to keep up. The light flickered once, and for a second my reflection held a smile I wasn't making. Just a tiny curl at the corner of my mouth, like it knew a joke I didn't. I slammed the faucet off and pressed my palms to the cold metal rim of the sink until my knuckles went white. The station kept its constant low groan under everything. Steel flexing, pumps cycling, water running where it shouldn't. Somewhere deeper, down near the listening post, sonar pings sounded, soft through the bulkheads, distorted by distance. Ping, 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 like a bored heartbeat in the dark. And then, right between two pings, I heard it. A knock. Not a pipe knock. Not expansion. Not some idiot dropping a wrench in a utility corridor. It was too clean. 3 taps, spaced like a code, coming from a direction that made my stomach tighten. Outside, I froze with my hands still braced on the sink and listened like an idiot. Nothing. I laughed once, sharp, humorless. I told myself what I always tell myself down here. It's a machine, it makes noises, you're tired, get the fuck over it. I peel my shirt up and check my stomach again. The skin looked normal. Pale, stretched a little from old pregnancies, cross-hatched with faint scars. No wound, no bruise. But when I touched just under my ribs, pain bloomed outward like a bruise being pressed. Huh, tender, deep. I lower my shirt fast like the station could see me. I didn't go to Zachary. I don't know why I even thought about it. Going to him with fear is like bleeding in front of shark. He doesn't comfort. He uses. I went to the infirmary. The infirmary on an underwater station isn't a hospital. It's a closet with a bed bolted to the floor, a cabinet of antibiotics and painkillers that expired 2 years ago, and a man named Deke who used to be a Navy corpsman before he got tired of the surface and fell in with Zachary's bullshit. Deke looked up from his tablet when I walked in. He had his reading glasses on and a mug of instant coffee balanced on a tray beside a stack of gauze. He saw my face and the glasses came off like he already knew. "What did you do?" he said. "No softness, just tired annoyance. I need you to look at something." He stared at me for a second. Then his eyes slid to the camera in the corner of the infirmary ceiling, the one Zachary insisted on installing for accountability. Deke's jaw tightened. "Fuck sake," he muttered, and he stood anyway. He moved with that stiff, joint pain way men get when they've spent too many years in cramped steel spaces. I lifted my shirt. His expression changed, not to panic, to something worse. Recognition. "Jesus," he said quietly, then corrected himself like he'd been trained. "Saw the... Show me." He pressed 2 fingers under my ribs, and I flinched hard, breath snapping in. "Yeah," he said. "Tender. No cheat." He glared at me. "You want help or you want to act tough?" "Help." He stepped back, grabbed a small ultrasound wand from a drawer. I didn't even know he still had one. The gel bottle was half empty, the label worn. "You pregnant?" he asked. I swallowed. "I don't know." He snorted. "You always know." "Not this time." He paused, looked at the camera again like it could judge him. Then he set his mouth, squeezed gel onto the wand, and pressed it to my skin. The screen flickered as it powered on. The first image that came up wasn't a fetus or an organ or anything I recognized. It was static, like a bad signal, grainy, moving like water seen through a cracked lens. Deke frowned, adjusted the angle, pressed harder. "Come on." The static shifted. For a second it formed a pattern, lines like ribs, a curve like a spine, and then it blurred again as if whatever was under my skin didn't want to be held in an image. A small sound came from the machine. Ping. Not the station sonar. The ultrasound. A tiny electronic chirp that sounded like a sonar return. Deke's hand froze. My mouth went dry. "What is that?" He didn't answer. He moved the wand lower. The screen steadied for half a second, and I saw it. Something round. Something swelling. Something that pulsed in time with the ping. And then, this is the part one wish I could scrub out of my memory like rust. Something inside that round shape turned. Like an eye adjusting. Deke yanked the wand away so fast gel splattered on my shirt. He shut the screen off with a violent jab of his thumb. "No," he said, more to himself than me. "No, no, no." "What the fuck is it?" I snapped. He wiped his hands on a towel like he'd touched a chemical burn. "You need to go. Deke." He leaned close, voice low enough the camera wouldn't pick it up well. "You need to go before he knows. Do you hear me?" Before. The infirmary door banged open hard enough to rattle the frame. Zachary stepped in like he owned oxygen. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His presence did the job. Behind him were two of the castrated men, silent, eyes down, muscles tight. They moved like trained dogs. Zachary's gaze flicked from Deke's wet hands to my half-lifted shirt to the gel on my skin. "What's this?" he said. "Routine check," Deke said immediately, tone neutral. "She's had pain. I'm making sure she isn't ruptured." Zachary walked closer. He put a hand on my stomach without asking. I almost hit him. My arms twitched with the urge. But I didn't. I held still like I always do, because the station teaches you what happens when you don't. His palm was warm. His fingers spread. He pressed, slow and firm, like he was feeling a fruit for ripeness. I clenched my teeth to keep from hissing. Zachary smiled. There was genuine joy in it. It made my skin crawl. "Ah," he said softly. "So that's why she came so close today." Deke went pale. "Zach!" Zachary's eyes snapped to him, sharp as a hook. "Don't!" Deke shut his mouth. Zachary kept his hand on my stomach and leaned in to smell me. Like a fucking animal. "Citrus," he murmured. In time, my throat tightened. "Get your hand off me." He chuckled once. "You don't get to talk like that." "Not now. I'm in pain." "Yes," he said, like that was a prayer. "Yes, you are. Bless pain." I hated him in that moment so much it made my vision blur. I imagined grabbing the scalpel from the infirmary tray and shoving it into his throat. I imagined his blood floating in water like smoke. I didn't move. Zachary straightened and looked at Deke again. "You saw it." Deke's lips parted. He hesitated for half a heartbeat, just long enough for me to realize he was deciding whether he wanted to live. "I saw something," Deke said carefully. Zachary nodded like a proud father. "Good. Then you understand. She is pleased." He turned back to me and his voice softened. "You're going to be comfortable. You're going to be fed. You're going to be protected. The station will take care of you." Like it took care of him. I snapped before I could stop myself. The room went cold. One of the men behind Zachary shifted. Zachary stared at me for a long time. Then he smiled again, slow. "You don't say his name," he said. "I didn't. You thought it." "Yeah, I did." He stepped closer until his breath hit my face. "You think you're allowed grief. You think you're allowed doubt. You think because your body works you get to question what keeps us alive down here." "I think you're a fucking murderer," I said, and my voice shook, and I hated that it shook. Zachary's smile fell away like a mask dropping. He backhanded me. Not hard enough to knock me down, just enough to remind me what he could do. My cheeks stung and my ears rang, and I tasted blood where my teeth cut my lip. Deke made a sound like he wanted to intervene. One of the castrated men's eyes widened. Nobody moved. Zachary leaned in, calm again. "You will not break," he said. "Do you understand me?" "Not now. Not when you are carrying what you are carrying." I spat blood to the side. "What the fuck am I carrying?" Zachary's eyes brightened again. Not with kindness, with hunger. "Prophecy," he said simply. "An opening." He turned sharply and gestured at the men. "Bring her to quarters." "I can walk," I snapped. He ignored me. The men stepped forward, each taking an arm, gentle but unbreakable, like her tendrils on the boy. Their hands were warm. Their grips were careful. They didn't look at my face. As it guided me out, I glanced back at Deke. He looked sick. He looked guilty. He looked terrified, and he did nothing. They walked me through corridors that smelled like damp insulation and bleach. Past the hydroponics module, where the nutrient tanks burbled softly and condensation dripped from the grow lights. Past the maintenance access, where pipes were wrapped in foam and labeled with stenciled warnings. Past the listening post hatch with its keypad and its black and yellow caution stripes. As we passed it, another sonar ping sounded, closer now, like someone had turned the volume up. Ping. And then again, 3 knocks, spaced like an echo. The men felt it too. I saw the way their shoulders tightened. But they kept walking because what else do they do? My quarters were a small room with a bunk, a locker, and a tiny porthole. Thick glass the size of a dinner plate that looked out into nothing but black water. No fish, no bioluminescent drift. Just void and occasional faint particles like dust in a beam of light. They sat me on the bunk like I was a child and locked the door from outside. The lock clicked, and then I was alone with the ocean on the other side of the wall and something inside my body that pinged like sonar. I pressed my forehead to the porthole glass. It was cold enough to sting. The black outside stared back. For a while, the only thing I could hear was my own breathing and the station's low groan. Then a shape slid past the porthole. Not close enough to see clearly. Just a shift in the black, like a shadow moving behind a curtain. My stomach rolled. I pulled back, heart hammering. Nothing. My reflection in the porthole glass looked back at me, pale and wide-eyed. For a second it held, that same tiny smile again. I turned away fast, like if I didn't look I could pretend none of this was real. I tried to sleep. You don't sleep in a station like this the way you sleep on land. You doze. You drift. You half-wake every time a pump cycles, or a pipe gurgles, or the hull creaks in a way that makes your lizard brain scream water is coming. That night, I lay on my side with my knees pulled up, and I kept my hand over my stomach because it felt like if I didn't hold it down, it would rise and split me open. The pain came in pulses. Between pulses, I could almost convince myself I was imagining it. Then the smell would hit me again, sudden and bright, citrus in time, like someone had cracked a lemon over fresh-cut herbs right beside my face, and my stomach would tighten like it was responding to a signal. At some point, I don't know what time because time gets weird down here without daylight, I heard footsteps outside my door. Keys. The lock clicked. I sat up, heart racing, ready to scream or fight or beg, whichever came first. Zachary stepped in alone. He closed the door behind him, slow. He didn't lock it. That was a message all by itself. You can try, but where the fuck would you go? He set a tray on the small fold-out table. Fruit slices, a cup of broth, 2 vitamin packs, and a small vial of something clear. What is that? I said, pointing at the vial. Something to help you rest, he said. I don't want it. He sat on the chair, the frail wooden chair, the same kind we used in the chapel, and the wood creaked under him like it resented him too. He looked too comfortable in my room, like he belonged everywhere. You're scared, he said. Nosleep. He nodded as if I'd confessed. Fear is useful. It keeps you obedient. I glared at him. Why are you here? He leaned forward, elbows on knees, voice low. Because you're about to start asking questions out loud. Because I need you to understand the shape of your world again before you hurt yourself. Understand the shape of my world, I snapped. It's a cage under the ocean run by a fucking cult leader. Zachary's eyes flashed. He kept his voice controlled. You think I enjoy this? You think I wanted the deep to choose us? The deep, I spat. Stop calling it that like it's holy. It is, he said, and the word landed heavy. It is older than holy. It is pressure and darkness and hunger. It is the ocean itself learning how to reach back. I laughed, but came out broken. You're insane. Zachary's gaze drifted to the porthole. Have you ever been outside? He asked suddenly. I mean truly outside. Not a dive bell. Not a sub. I mean in open water, no light, just black. Have you ever felt the weight of it on your skin? The way it pushes into your bones? The way it makes you pray without knowing you're praying? I didn't answer. He looked back at me. We were going to die down here, he said. Before she came. Before the first contact. The station was failing. Supply drops were months late. Scrubbers were degrading. We had men fighting in corridors over protein paste. We had women with miscarriages because the nutrient mix was wrong and the water had trace heavy metals. We were a doomed tin can. He paused. Then the pings started. My throat tightened. The sonar. He nodded slowly. At first we thought it was a whale, then a sub, then a malfunction. The pings weren't random. They were conversational, like something was probing us, learning our shape. You know how a bat maps a room? Like that. The station groaned around us as if it was listening. Zachary leaned closer. We sent pings back. We used the deep array. We matched the frequency. We played with it like idiots, like kids tapping on aquarium glass. He smiled without humor. Something tapped back. My skin prickled, and you decided to feed it children. He flinched at the word children, then hardened. It wanted offerings. It made that clear. It touched the station, not physically at first. It made the water in the pipes run backwards. It made condensation form on dry surfaces. It made men dream of drowning on land. It made our radios fill with saltwater sounds. It made the porthole reflections move wrong. I stared at him because he was saying things I had noticed and refused to name. Zachary's voice dropped even lower. Then it took a man. My mouth went dry. What? He nodded once. On maintenance star. Solo in a utility corridor near the moon pool. Camera saw him walk in. Camera saw the corridor fill with mist like someone opened a freezer. Then a smell. Citrus. And the camera went to static for 19 seconds. When it came back, he was gone. Only wet footprints leading to the moon pool hatch, and the hatch clamps were loosened from the inside like someone had turned them with fingers that weren't fingers. My stomach turned so hard I had to swallow bile. Zachary watched my face with satisfaction. After that, we listened. We learned. We built the chapel because we needed a place to meet her properly. We needed ritual, rules, structure. We needed to stop being prey and become partners. Partners, I said, disgust thick in my voice. Survivors, he corrected, and she rewarded us. She stabilized the station. The leaks stopped. The power fluctuations eased. The hydroponics took root. The algae vats bloomed. The fish cages filled even when we didn't stock them. The ocean around us changed. It became quieter, like it was holding off predators, like it was making space for us. He lifted his chin, eyes shining with that preacher's madness. She made this place habitable. In exchange, we give what she asks. I shook my head, teeth clenched. You could have sent a distress call. You could have evacuated. Zachary snorted. To where? The surface that forgot us. The governments that buried this station in paperwork. The Navy that wanted this listening post off the books. You think they'd rescue us? They'd seal us in and call it classified. His gaze sharpened. And even if they did, she would follow. You think she's just an animal in the water? No, she's a response. She's an intelligence that lives in pressure. She learned our signals. She learned our languages. She learned our bodies. He gestured toward my stomach. And now she's learning yours from the inside. My hands went automatically to my abdomen. The pain pulsed as if it liked being mentioned. What does that mean? I said, voice tight. Zachary's smile returned, soft as a knife. It means you are blessed, he said. It means your womb isn't just fertile. It's receptive. It means she chose you not just as a producer, but as a conduit. I swallowed hard. I didn't consent. Zachary's expression turned almost pitying. Consent, he said, like the word was cute. Down here, we consent to the water every time we take a breath. He stood, picked up the clear vial, and held it out. Drink. Rest. The pain will worsen if you fight it. I slapped the vial out of his hand. It hit the deck and rolled, the clear liquid inside wobbling. Zachary stared at it for a second. Then he looked at me, and his calm snapped. He grabbed my hair at the back of my head and yanked my face toward him. Don't, he hissed. Don't make me do this the hard way. You are valuable. You're the only reason the station still has food. You're the only reason she hasn't taken more. His fingers tightened in my hair. Pain flared across my scalp. I'm not a fucking tool, I snarled. Yes, you are, he said flatly. You're a tool God forged in flesh. He shoved me back onto the bunk. Not gentle. My stomach jolted. Pain exploded so bright I saw white spots. And under that pain, under it deep, something shifted. Not gas, not a muscle twitch, a deliberate roll. Zachary saw my face change. He released my hair and stepped back fast, eyes wide with something like reverence. "There," he whispered. "You felt it. She's awake." I lay there panting, sweat cold on my skin, hand clenched around my stomach like I could hold myself together by force. Zachary retrieved the vial from the deck without looking away from me. "You'll drink," he said, voice calmer again. "You'll sleep. Tomorrow we move you to the comfort room near the chapel. Closer. Easier." "No," I said, breath shaking. "No." He tilted his head. "You think you can refuse?" "I'm not going to that hatch," I spat. Zachary's gaze hardened. "You don't get to decide what you're going to. Not anymore." He set the vial on the table, then walked to the door. Before he stepped out, he paused and spoke without turning around. "You want to know why it's 12? He said softly. "Why it's boys. Why it's to the day." I didn't answer, but my silence was permission. Zachary's voice dropped, almost tender. "Because 12 is when their bones have enough density to hold resonance," he said. "Because boys at that age still have the right kind of softness in them. Because she doesn't just eat them. She tunes them. She hollows them out and uses the shape that's left." He opened the door. "And now," he added, "she's tuning you." He left. The door locked behind him. I sat in the dim light and listened to my own pulse hammering. Then I heard it again. 3 knocks. Outside the hall. This time, closer. I didn't sleep after that. I drifted in and out of shallow doze, waking every time the station pinged or groaned, or the pain in my stomach rolled over itself like a storm swell. At one point, I dreamed I was in open water. No tank, no suit, just me suspended in black, hair floating, skin prickling with cold. I couldn't breathe, but I wasn't drowning. The ocean held me like a cradle. Somewhere far away, a light pulse blew, bioluminescence, maybe, and with each pulse I tasted citrus in my mouth. Something brushed my ankle. I jerked and woke up sweating, legs kicking in my bunk like I was fighting an invisible net. My porthole was fogged with condensation from my breath. I wiped it with my sleeve. The black outside looked thicker than usual, like ink, and there, just at the edge of the porthole view, was a handprint on the glass. Not on the inside, on the outside. My breath stopped. The handprint was long, finger marks stretched too far apart, pads shaped wrong. It looked like something pressed its palm to the glass and left a smear of oily green residue that glowed faintly, like algae under UV. I stumbled back from the porthole so fast my heel hit the bunk frame, and I almost went down. I stared at the mark until my eyes watered. Then, slowly, as if the ocean itself was dragging it, another handprint appeared beside it, like someone was climbing. I backed away until my shoulders hit the bulkhead. My skin crawled. My stomach hurt so badly I wanted to vomit. I forced myself to look away, to breathe, to not scream, because screaming doesn't help down here. It just makes you sound like prey. I grabbed my coveralls and yanked them on with shaking hands. I slapped my feet into boots. I didn't care if the corridor cameras saw me. I didn't care if Zachary punished me. I needed air. I needed space. I needed to not be alone in a room with that porthole. I pounded on my door. No answer. I pounded again, harder. Footsteps came eventually. Keys. The lock clicked. One of the castrated men opened the door a crack. His eyes were tired. He looked like he'd been awake for days. "What?" he said, voice flat. "There's something outside my porthole," I said fast. There's a fucking handprint." His gaze flicked past me toward the porthole. His face didn't change, but something in his eyes tightened. He whispered, almost soundless, "Don't look. Don't tell me not to." He cut me off, voice low and sharp. "Don't look. It wants you to look." I stared at him. He swallowed, Adam's apple bobbing. "They moved you here because she can see this porthole," he said. "She comes here. At night." My mouth went dry. "Why didn't you say anything?" His lips twisted bitter. "Say what? To who? We don't have mouths here. We have rolls." Something in his tone, resentment, made my fear sharpen into anger. "You're helping him," I snapped. You walk us down the aisles. You grab our arms. You stand there while his eyes flashed. He stepped closer into my doorway, voice suddenly heated. You think I chose this? He hissed. You think I volunteered to be cut? You think I wanted to stand naked like an offering every season while he rubs his hand over the scar like a reminder? He leaned in, breath hot. You took my fucking choices. You took my body. You took my name. You still have yours. You still have your womb. And you're acting like you're the only one trapped. The words hit hard because they were true. I swallowed anger back like bile. Help me, I said, quieter. Please, I don't want to go to that hatch. He hesitated, eyes flicking to the corridor camera above my door. The little red light blinked. He looked back at me and his jaw tightened. Go to hydroponics, he said quickly. There's a maintenance hatch behind tank 3. It leads to the old service corridor. Cameras are dead there. You can think. Think, I echoed bitterly. What the fuck is thinking going to do? It's all you've got, he said. Go. He stepped back, leaving the door open just enough. I didn't waste the chance. I slipped out into the corridor, head down, moving fast, boots squeaking faintly on damp metal. The station felt different in motion, like it does after a death. People moved quieter, doors closed softer. Even events seemed to hush. As I walked, that citrus thyme smell followed me in faint waves like it was leaking from my pores. Hydroponics was warm compared to the rest of the station. The air was thick with damp plant smell and nutrient solution and mold. Fans hummed. Water dripped constantly from the condensation lines into collection trays. The grow lights cast everything in harsh white blue, making my skin look sick. I moved between the rows of lettuce and dwarf tomatoes, brushing past leaves that left wet streaks on my sleeves. I heard voices ahead, 2 maids arguing in low tones near the algae vats. Not normal, one said. Don't say it, the other snapped. Walls have ears. I stepped around a rack and they both jerked, eyes wide. It was Mara and Joe. Mara had been here longer than me. Joe was newer, still had a little softness in her face that hadn't been hollowed out yet. Mara's gaze went straight to my stomach like it had a magnet in it. You're leaking, she said bluntly. Joe elbowed her hard. Mara, shut up. I'm not leaking. I lied automatically. Mara's mouth twisted. Don't insult me, she said. We all leak eventually. My skin went cold. What do you mean? Joe looked away, jaw clenched, hands gripping the edge of a nutrient tank so hard her knuckles whitened. Mara stepped closer, voice low. You think you're special because you make boys, she said. There was envy in it and anger. You think Zachary's favors mean you're safe. I never said. Mara cut me off. We've all had the pain, she said. We've all woken up with the smell on us. Citrus and herbs. Like a kitchen on land. Like something trying to pretend it belongs. And then we bleed green and we get sick and we either, she swallowed, eyes hard. We either stop producing or we get moved closer to the chapel and we don't come back. My breath caught. That's not true. Mara's eyes flashed. You want truth, she hissed. Truth is the ocean didn't choose you because you're blessed. It chose you because you're convenient. Joe grabbed my sleeve, voice shaking. Don't talk like that, she whispered. If the cameras... There are no cameras in hydroponics, Mara snapped. Not since the flood. Istir the hair. What flood? Mara's expression tightened. You really don't know, she said, almost laughing. Of course you don't. It keeps you ignorant because it keeps you obedient. Joe's fingers dug into my sleeve. Mara ignored her. 3 years ago, she said, the moonpool seals failed for 6 minutes. 6. That's all it took. Water came in like an animal. Not a leak. A surge. It filled the chapel module first. It filled the aisle. It filled the wooden chairs. And the water wasn't normal. My throat went dry. It moved wrong, Mara said, eyes fixed on mine. It flowed uphill. It clung to people like it had hands. Men got dragged into the hatch without the hatch even opening. They just slid through like the metal turned soft for them. Joe made a small sobbing sound and covered her mouth. Mara's voice dropped. After that, Zachary made the castrations mandatory, she said. Said it was to keep order. Said it was to stop fighting. But really, it was because she didn't want men breeding without her permission. She didn't want boys born outside the count. She wanted control. My stomach clenched so hard I doubled slightly. Jo tightened her grip on me. "Sit," she whispered urgently. "Please." I shook her off. "Where's the maintenance hatch?" I demanded, voice rough. Mara jerked her chin toward the back of the module. "Behind tank 3, she said. "You running?" "I'm thinking," I snapped, bitter. Mara's mouth curled. "Good luck," she said. Thinking doesn't stop pressure. I moved past them toward the algae vats. The vats were large, black plastic tubs with aerators bubbling constantly. The surface covered in green scum that we harvested for protein. The bubbles popped with soft, wet noises like 1,000 tiny mouths. As I passed, the algae surface stilled. Every bubble stopped. The water went glass smooth. My reflection stared up at me from the green-black surface. It blinked late. I stopped breathing. In the reflection, my mouth moved, not in sync with me. It formed a word, silent. Manga. I stumbled back hard and slammed into the tank behind me, sloshing nutrient water over the rim. The aerators kicked back on. Bubbles resumed like nothing happened. Jo cried out. Mara swore. "What?" Jo gasped. "What did you see?" I couldn't answer. My tongue felt thick. My skin was cold. The smell of citrus suddenly flooded my nose so strong it made my eyes water. Mara's face went pale. "She's close," she whispered. I didn't wait. I pushed past the racks to tank 3, found a maintenance hatch behind it, an old square panel half hidden by pipes and a coil of hose. It was held shut with 2 bolts. My hand shook as I spun them loose. The bolts squealed. The metal was slick with condensation. The hatch opened with a reluctant groan, releasing a breath of colder air and stale dampness. I slipped inside. The service corridor beyond was narrow and unlit. I used the little flashlight clipped to my coveralls, the beam bouncing off wet metal walls. The air smelled like rust and old seawater. Water dripped somewhere ahead, steady and slow. I walked. The corridor bent. Another bend. Pipes overhead. Cables wrapped in cracked insulation. The deeper I went, the more the station's normal hum faded, replaced by a thicker silence, broken only by the drip, drip, drip like a clock. My flashlight beam caught old warning signs, classified equipment, do not enter, listening array access, and one door with a faded stencil that made my stomach drop. Corrections. The word was half peeled, paint flaking like dead skin. The door itself was sealed with weld lines, like someone had tried to permanently close it. And yet, the seam around it was wet. Water beaded there like it was seeping from inside. I stood in front of that door, heart pounding so hard it hurt. I didn't want to open it, but I didn't know what else to do. I put my hand on the wheel lock. Cold. Vet. When I turned it, it moved. No resistance. The wheel spun like the door had never been locked at all. My throat tightened. I swallowed hard and pulled. The door opened a crack, and a smell hit me so strong it made me gag. Citrus, thyme, rotting fish, oil, and something sweeter like overripe fruit left in sun. I pushed the door open wider. The room beyond was small and round, like an old pressure chamber. The walls were lined with instruments, old sonar equipment, analog dials, cables running into the bulkhead. A chair bolted to the floor in the center, leather straps hanging limp like they'd been used. The floor was wet, not just damp, but like someone had poured a bucket. And in the center of the floor, there was a puddle so black it looked like a hole. My flashlight beam hit it and didn't reflect properly. The light bent, dimmed like it was being swallowed. I stepped closer despite every instinct screaming at me not to. The puddle rippled. A face surfaced in it. Not my face. A boy's face. 12 years old. Pale. Eyes wide. Mouth open as if trying not to breathe. The same boy from the chapel. His lips moved. Manga. My stomach clenched and I stumbled back, almost falling. The puddle rippled again, and the boy's face slid away like it was being pulled under. In its place, something else surfaced. A mass of pale skin stretched thin over ridges. A hint of ribs. A curve of swollen stomach. And above it, just for a second, a shape that might have been a mouth, opening like a wound. A wail rose, silent in the room, but loud in my skull. My teeth ached. My vision blurred. I clamped my hands over my ears. But it didn't help because it wasn't sound traveling through air. It was pressure moving through bone. Then, from somewhere behind me, I heard footsteps. Spoon. Zachary stood in the doorway. Of course he did. He didn't look surprised. He looked pleased. You found it, he said softly. I backed away until my calves hit the chair in the center of the room. The leather straps brushed my legs like fingers. How did you? I know every hole in my station, Zachary said. This place is my church, my body, my burden. This is where you keep the truth. I snapped, voice shaking. This is where you hide. What is that puddle? Zachary stepped in, boots splashing lightly. That's where she listens, he said. That's the first place she touched us. We used to call it an equipment malfunction, a leak, a condensation problem. Then it started showing us faces. My stomach rolled. That's not him, I whispered. That's not. It's what's left, Zachary said calm. When she hollows them, when she takes what she needs and leaves the shape behind. I glared at him, fury burning hot enough to push back fear. You're feeding her kids. Zachary's gaze sharpened. We're feeding her prophecy, he said. You don't understand because you still think in surface terms. Eat, sleep, breed, that's all the surface is. Down here, we're building something. He stepped closer, eyes fixed on my stomach. And you, he added, almost reverent, are building it for us. No, he spat. Zachary sighed like I was exhausting. You're going to sit, he said. I'm not. He moved fast, grabbing my shoulders and forcing me down into the chair. The leather was cold and wet against my skin through my coveralls. The straps slapped against my arms. I fought, twisting, trying to shove him off. He caught my wrist with practiced strength and yanked the straps tight. The leather bit into my skin. Stop, I snarled, thrashing. Zachary leaned close, voice low. You're gonna hurt her, he whispered. I don't give a fuck about her. His hand snapped up and clamped over my mouth. Careful, he hissed. Say that again, and she will hear it. And you think you're afraid now. The puddle on the floor rippled. A thin tendril rose from it, like a filament of water being pulled upward. It didn't drip. It didn't fall. It held its shape, stretching toward us like it had muscle. My eyes went wide. I tried to scream, but Zachary's hand smothered it. The tendril reached my boot and touched it. Cold shot up my leg like ice water poured down my spine. My stomach spasmed, pain blooming. Zachary's eyes shone. Yes, he whispered. Yes. The tendril slid up my boot, up my shin, leaving that faint, oily green smear that glowed in the flashlight beam. It reached my knee, my thigh, climbing with slow certainty. I thrashed harder, straps creaking, chair groaning. Zachary's hand left my mouth. He ordered, voice sharp. Hum like you do in the chapel. Help her. Go to hell, I gasped. Zachary's expression hardened. He grabbed my jaw hard enough to hurt. He repeated. The tendril reached my stomach. The moment it touched the tender spot under my ribs, pain exploded so hard I screamed despite myself. My back arched against the straps. My vision went white. The smell of citrus and thyme flooded my nose so strong it felt like I was drowning in it. And then, under the pain, something in my abdomen responded. A vibration, a tiny ping like sonar. Ping. The puddle rippled in answer. Ping. The tendril tightened around my stomach like a belt. Zachary exhaled a shaky breath, eyes wild. There, he whispered. There it is. The resonance. I panted, drool at the corner of my mouth, eyes burning with tears I refused to let fall. What is it doing? I rasped. Zachary's voice softened again, preacher smooth. She's aligning you, he said. She's making you adore. My stomach convulsed. I gagged. Something hot rose in my throat, and I spitball onto my chest. The tendril pressed harder. I felt skin stretch. I felt something inside me press back. Not a baby kick, not a human movement, more like something unfurling. The straps bit deeper into my wrists as I fought against them, desperate. Zachary watched like a man watching sunrise. The puddle rippled again, and from the puddle, more tendrils rose. 2, 4, 8. They climbed the chair legs, the straps, my boots. They wrapped around my arms, my shoulders, my throat. Not choking, holding. I felt wet pads press against my jaw, my cheekbone, my forehead like fingers exploring a face. A pressure built in my ears. A high whine, like the beginning of her wail, but muffled, contained. My teeth ached. My eyes watered. The flashlight beam shook as Zachary's hands trembled. He whispered again, softer now like a plea. And the worst part is, this is the part one can barely admit I did it. Not because I wanted to help her, because my body wanted to survive, because humming gave my throat something to do besides scream. I let a low hum leak out through clenched teeth. The tendrils tightened in response, like they liked it. The pressure in my skull eased a fraction, like the hum matched the frequency and made the pain bearable. Zachary's eyes rolled back for a second, as if he was in prayer. Good, he murmured. Good girl. I wanted to bite him. The puddle rippled violently. Something rose from it, taller than the tendrils, pushing up like a shape forcing itself into a too small opening. Her. Not fully. Not the whole, impossibly tall body. Just a portion, like she was extending herself through water instead of walking through doors. A pale torso surfaced, rib ridges visible under stretched skin. The swollen stomach bulged up like a grotesque island, oozing red and green fluid into the puddle. Arms unfolded, too many, and they reached toward me. The smell hit me so hard I gagged again. She leaned close. I still couldn't see her face. The light bent around her. My brain slid away from details like it was protecting itself. But I felt her attention like a hand inside my chest. Her tendrils touched my stomach, and the pain peaked, then shifted into something else. Heat, pressure, a sensation like my skin was becoming thin. I felt something under my ribs push outward. Zachary whispered frantically, "Yes, yes, take her, bless her, open her." I hated him. I hated him so much my hum turned into a growl. Her hands pressed against my abdomen. And then, I swear to God, I swear on every dead kid we fed to her, my skin didn't tear. It parted, like wet paper being pulled aside. I screamed, but the tendrils held my jaw, muffling it. I looked down. My coveralls were intact, but underneath them my skin rippled, and a seam opened just under my ribs, a thin slit that glowed faintly green around the edges like algae. From inside that seam, something pushed outward, not a hand, a long, pale tendril. It slid out slowly, wet and shining, and it reached toward her like a child reaching for its mother. The moment it touched her, the pressure in the room changed. The station groaned, deep and loud, like the hull flexed under a sudden shift in water weight. The puddle surged outward, water climbing the walls in a thin sheet, not falling, just holding there like it was waiting for permission. Zachary sobbed, an actual sob. "It's happening," he whispered, voice breaking. "The opening. The prophecy." I turned my head toward him, eyes wild, and my reflection in the puddle met my gaze. Only it wasn't my reflection anymore. It was her, and her mouth moved in the puddle, forming words without sound. Not mama, Mine, my name. I don't know how she knew it. I don't know how she knows anything. But hearing it, even silent, made something inside me loosen like a knot untying. The tendril that had come out of my body pulsed, and I felt it like a heartbeat that wasn't mine. Her hands withdrew slowly, as if satisfied. The seam of my skin didn't close. It just sealed like a wet wound smoothing over, leaving behind a faint line that glowed green under the flashlight beam. The tendril slipped back inside me like it was never there. I lay strapped to the chair, panting, shaking, tears streaming now because I couldn't stop them, chest heaving like I'd run for miles. Zachary was on his knees in the wet, hands lifted in worship, face slick with sweat. Her torso sank back into the puddle, tendrils retreating like seaweed pulled by tide. The puddle went still again, black and quiet, as if none of it happened. The pressure in my ears eased. The room warmed slightly. The station's normal hum crept back and around the edges, like a machine resuming routine. Zachary rose slowly, eyes shining with triumph. He walked to me and unbuckled the straps with trembling fingers. I didn't move. I couldn't. My wrists throbbed where the leather bit. My stomach felt hollow and full at the same time. Zachary leaned close, voice soft. "You see," he murmured, "you see why we do this. You're not just a maid. You're a vessel, a bridge. She's inside you now in a way she's never been inside anyone." I stared at him with hate so pure it tasted like iron. "I'm going to kill you," I said, voice flat. Zachary smiled like I'd complimented him. "You can try," he said, "but you won't, because she won't let you, because you're tuned now." He brushed his fingers over the tender spot under my ribs, right where the seam had opened. My body flinched despite me. Zachary's smile widened. "See," he whispered, "obedience." He stepped back, then turned and walked out of the corrections chamber like he'd just finished a sermon. He left the door open behind him. I sat there for a long time in the wet chair, shaking, staring at the black puddle on the floor as if it might rise again. Eventually, my legs worked again. I stood unsteady, my boots squelched slightly in water that shouldn't have been there. I stumbled out into the service corridor, flashlight beam wobbling. The corridor felt longer on the way back, like it stretched, like the station itself wanted to keep me near that room. When I finally got back to hydroponics, Mara and Joe were gone. The module was quiet except for fans and dripping and the soft bubble of the algae vats. I didn't go back to my quarters. I went to the listening post. I don't even know why. Maybe because the sonar pings have been in my skull all day and I wanted to see the machine that started all this. Maybe because part of me hoped I could find a way to call the surface, to scream into a radio and make someone hear me. The listening post hatch was locked. I punched the code anyway. It beeped once, then the keypad light turned green like it recognized my finger as authorized when I knew damn well it shouldn't. The hatch opened. Cold air spilled out, smelling like electronics and stale seawater. Inside, the listening post module was dim, lit by screens and low strip lights. The sonar console sat in the center like an altar of its own, covered in knobs and dials and a scrolling display of waveform returns. No one was there. I stepped closer, heart pounding. The screen showed a steady series of pings echoing from the deep array. Ping, ping, ping. Except now, layered under the normal station pulse, there was another pattern. A hum-like frequency, low and constant, matching the maid chant. And in the middle of that frequency, faint but unmistakable, was a modulation that looked like speech. Like someone had learned how to talk through sonar. My mouth went dry. The speaker on the console crackled softly, and then, through static and water distortion, I heard a sound that wasn't a ping. A breath, a wet inhale, then a series of clicks and wails too high for a human throat. The hairs on my arms rose, and then, through the distortion, I heard a word. My name again, clearer this time, like the station had adjusted its filters. I stumbled back, knocking into the console. My hands flailed, hitting buttons and switches by accident. The speaker shrieked, a burst of feedback that made me clam my hands over my ears. When I looked back at the screen, the waveform had changed. The deep return was closer, much closer, like whatever was out there had moved. Fast. The station groaned, deep and long, like the hull flexed under a sudden pressure shift. And then the console display flashed an alert. External contact, hull proximity. I stared at it, frozen, heart hammering. Outside, somewhere in the black, something big enough to register as a hull contact was touching us. I heard the knocks again, this time not distant, This time, right on the other side of the listening post bulkhead. 3 taps, then a drag, like fingernails across steel. I backed away from the console, breath shaking. My flashlight beam wobbled across the wall, across the seam where the bulkhead met the floor. Water beaded there. Then it started to rise, not leaking down, rising up, crawling upward in thin streams like gravity had flipped. The citrus thyme smell hit me so hard I gagged. My stomach pulsed in response. Ping, not from the console, from inside me. Ping. I clamped my hands over my abdomen, eyes wide. Something moved under my skin again, pressing outward, not as violently as in the corrections chamber, but enough to make my shirt lift slightly. My breath came in ragged gasps. No, y whispered. No, no. The speaker crackled again. This time, through the sonar distortion, I heard something that sounded like humming. The maid's hum. My hum. The station's lights flickered. And then, in the dim reflection of the sonar screen, I saw myself. Except my reflection wasn't looking at the screen. It was looking straight at me. And it smiled. Not my smile. Her smile. The hatch behind me clunked. Ispun, expecting Zahari. No one was there. The hatch will turn anyway. Slow, like an invisible hand was spinning it. The hatch opened a few inches. Cold, wet air poured in from the corridor, carrying that citrus thyme scent like a tide. Something made a wet, slithering sound outside. Not footsteps, not boots, more like a body folding through a too small space. My throat closed. I backed away until my shoulder hit the bulkhead. I couldn't run. I couldn't scream. My body felt tuned to the station, held in place by pressure and fear and whatever had been seated in my gut. The hatch opened wider. A tendril slid through first, pale and jointed, feeling the air. Then another, then an arm. She didn't fully enter. She didn't need to. The tendrils reached toward me, slow and certain. I tasted salt and metal in my mouth. I smelled citrus and thyme so strong it made my eyes burn. The sonar console pinged again, loud like a heartbeat. Ping. My stomach answered. Ping. Her tendrils paused midair as if listening. And then, from deep inside me, that seam under my ribs, the place that had opened, burned with sudden heat. I gasped and doubled over. Green liquid leaked through my shirt, bright and viscous, running down my skin in slow strings. It smelled like her. It smelled like me now. The tendrils reached in and touched the liquid, then touched my cheek. Cold. Vet. Familiar. I looked up, eyes watering. The air in front of me rippled like heat haze, like water in the wrong place. And in that ripple, I thought I saw the curve of her swollen stomach, the stretched skin, the ripple of ribs under it. I couldn't see her face, but I could feel her attention like a hand on my shoulder. Firm, guiding, claiming. My stomach pulsed again, tender to the touch, and I realized with a sick, helpless clarity that the boys weren't the only offerings she took. They were just the easiest ones to carry to the hatch.